Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar never technically held the title of emperor, but every Roman emperor existed because he did. By 44 BC, he had defeated his rivals, crossed the Rubicon, and accumulated enough offices that many senators feared the Republic was becoming a monarchy in everything but name. The conspiracy that formed against him included more than 60 senators, many of whom had once benefited from his patronage. They convinced themselves that removing Caesar would save Rome from tyranny. Whether it would or not became irrelevant the moment the plan was set in motion. On March 15th, 44 BC, the Ides of March, Caesar entered the theater of Pompey for a Senate meeting. The conspirators surrounded him under the pretense of presenting a petition. The first strike failed to kill him. Neither did the second. What followed was chaos disguised as coordination. Caesar was stabbed dozens of times by men he knew personally. Ancient sources disagree on the exact number of wounds, but only a few were fatal. The senators expected the Republic to return. Instead, they triggered a civil war that destroyed it forever. Caligula. Caligula began his reign as one of Rome's most popular rulers. He was young, charismatic, and the son of a beloved military hero. For a brief period, Rome celebrated him. Then something changed. Ancient historians describe a ruler who became increasingly unpredictable, humiliating senators, alienating military officers, and treating criticism as a personal insult worthy of punishment. Separating fact from rumor is difficult because many of the accounts were written by men who hated him. By 41 AD, members of the Praetorian Guard had reached their limit. During a public event near the imperial palace, a group of officers led by Cassius Chaerea intercepted the emperor in a corridor away from the crowd. Caligula was attacked before his guards could react. The assault was quick and decisive. His wife and daughter were also killed shortly afterward. The Senate briefly considered restoring the Republic. The Praetorian Guard had other ideas. Within hours, they found Claudius hiding in the palace and declared him emperor. Commodus. Commodus inherited the empire from his father, Marcus Aurelius, one of Rome's most respected rulers. The transition should have been smooth. Instead, it marked the beginning of one of the strangest reigns in Roman history. He preferred gladiatorial spectacles to administration and increasingly viewed himself as a heroic figure beyond ordinary criticism. Statues portrayed him as Hercules. Public ceremonies became opportunities for self-celebration. The people often enjoyed the entertainment. The elite did not. By the end of 192 AD, several influential figures concluded that the empire could no longer function under his rule. A poison plot was attempted first, but Commodus survived. The conspirators then turned to a simpler solution. On New Year's Eve, a wrestler named Narcissus entered the emperor's chambers. Commodus was exhausted and vulnerable. Narcissus strangled him in his bath, ending a reign that had pushed Rome toward instability. The next morning, the empire entered a political crisis that would soon erupt into civil war. Caracalla. Caracalla ruled alongside his brother Geta before arranging his murder and taking sole control of the empire. The act eliminated a rival, but created a reputation that followed him for the rest of his reign. Despite his brutality, Caracalla remained popular with many soldiers. He increased military pay, spent heavily on the army, and cultivated the image of a warrior emperor. That loyalty made him difficult to challenge openly. In 217 AD, while traveling through Mesopotamia during a military campaign, Caracalla stopped along the roadside. It was an ordinary moment during an otherwise routine journey. A soldier named Julius Martialis approached and killed him before nearby guards could intervene. The attack lasted seconds. Behind the assassination stood officials who believed the emperor had become too dangerous to leave alive. Caracalla survived battlefields and conspiracies only to die during a brief pause on a dusty road far from Rome. Aurelian. Aurelian inherited an empire on the verge of collapse and somehow put it back together. He defeated breakaway states, secured the frontiers, and restored imperial authority across vast territories that had nearly been lost forever. Few emperors achieved more in less time. That success created a problem. Aurelian was demanding, suspicious, and known for harsh discipline. Mistakes were rarely forgiven. His secretary, fearing punishment for administrative irregularities, decided survival required drastic action. In 275 AD, Forged documents were circulated among senior officers, falsely claiming the emperor intended to execute them. The officers believed the deception. While traveling through Thrace, Aurelian was attacked by men who thought they were striking first to save themselves. Only afterward did they discover the accusations had been fabricated. One of Rome's most effective emperors was killed not by rebellion or invasion, but by paperwork and panic. Domitian spent years strengthening imperial authority and securing the empire's finances. He also accumulated enemies with remarkable efficiency. Senators disliked his centralization of power. Courtiers feared his suspicion. Informants flourished in an atmosphere where accusations carried consequences. By the final years of his reign, trust inside the palace had largely disappeared. In September 96 AD, a conspiracy emerged among palace officials and members of his household. Domitian was informed that danger might be approaching, but conflicting reports made it difficult to know whom to trust. The attackers entered his private quarters and confronted him directly. Ancient accounts suggest he fought back fiercely despite being overwhelmed. The struggle ended inside the palace he believed he controlled. The Senate celebrated the news almost immediately. The soldiers who had served him did not. Pertinax became emperor after the death of Commodus and immediately attempted to restore discipline throughout the government and military. It was a sensible policy. It was also unpopular. The Praetorian Guard had grown accustomed to rewards, privileges, and political influence. Pertinax expected professionalism. The guards expected payment. Only 87 days after taking power, a group of Praetorians marched into the imperial palace. The emperor reportedly tried to reason with them instead of fleeing. It was a brave decision and an ineffective one. The guards killed him where he stood. Afterwards, they conducted one of the most extraordinary events in Roman history. They effectively auctioned the imperial throne to the highest bidder. The empire's highest office became a commodity, and Rome descended further into chaos. Severus Alexander inherited an empire facing increasing pressure along its borders. He was intelligent, cautious, and considerably less aggressive than many of the soldiers under his command preferred. As Germanic threats intensified, the emperor attempted negotiation where many officers wanted war. To them, diplomacy looked suspiciously similar to weakness. In 235 AD, frustration inside the army reached a breaking point. Soldiers proclaimed a rival commander emperor and turned against the reigning ruler. Severus Alexander and his mother were killed in their camp by their own troops. The assassination marked more than the end of a reign. It marked the beginning of the crisis of the 3rd century, one of the most turbulent periods in Roman history. The emperor died quickly. The consequences lasted for decades.